In the lead-up to Super Mario Party Jamboree, Nintendo partnered with Bandai Namco to release this official Mario frying pan in the shape of a super mushroom. Pretty neat, right? Except 2 weeks later, a worrying discovery was made. Oil heated on the pan would sometimes change colour. In other words, some kind of chemical reaction was taking place between the oil and the pan surface, which could potentially be really dangerous. Bandai Namco and Nintendo were left with no choice but to remove the pan from sale and issue a warning to customers who owned one. Do not use your pan! A couple of weeks later, they issued an update. The discoloration was most likely caused by the non-stick coating peeling off. Yikes. So that's just one example of official Nintendo products later being found to be dangerous. Like the official DS chargers sold in Japan, which were prone to overheating and burning users. 200,000 of the chargers had to be recooled by Nintendo. Not good. But what I want to talk about today is something potentially even more dangerous: lead. From 2004 to 2007, Nintendo sold lapel pins at their official Nintendo store, which were later found to have contained excess levels of lead. So in this video, I'll tell you the story of these lapel pins and the extensive product recall that Nintendo later embarked upon. So, to understand the story of Nintendo's lead-laced lapels, we need to untangle a slightly complicated web of companies. The first is Bluegrass Promotional Marketing, a fairly small marketing firm founded in 1995 and based in the city of Charlotte, North Carolina. Nintendo had teamed up with this small marketing firm to produce a number of products in the past. And in 2004, Bluegrass was tasked with acquiring some Nintendo-branded lapel pins, which could be worn by staff and sold in Nintendo's stores. To get their hands on the pins Nintendo wanted, Bluegrass partnered with another company based on the other side of the country, Pro Source Inc., a small importer based in the town of Troutdale, Oregon. Now, as far as I can tell, neither of those two companies are still around in 2024, but at the time, they played a crucial part in the oncoming disaster. So, Pro Source Inc. imported these Nintendo-branded lapel pins from a Chinese manufacturer, which were then sent to Bluegrass Promotional Marketing before finally reaching Nintendo of America. Now, there are 12 different pin designs in total, covering series such as Mario, Pokémon, Star Fox, Metroid, and Kirby. And in April 2004, Nintendo of America began selling these lapel pins at 2 of their stores. The first store was open to the public, New York's Nintendo World Store, as it was known at the time. To this day, Nintendo New York is one of the company's flagship retail stores, serving hundreds of customers every day. The other store where these pins could be found is called Nintendo Fun and Games, located within Nintendo of America's headquarters in Redmond, Washington. Nintendo Fun and Games is not open to the public, instead selling Nintendo products only to employees of the company. Actually, this store is pretty mysterious to those outside Nintendo. Our only glimpse was during an old episode of Nintendo Minute, which Nintendo later took down from YouTube.
At headquarters, we have this great Nintendo store, which is open to employees only, so please don't come and try to shop here.
But the pins weren't only available to buy. According to Nintendo, they were also given away as promotional items to business associates who are employed by retailers where Nintendo products are sold. In other words, shop staff at places like GameStop were given these pins to wear. That means that the pins were able to reach staff all across the country. For over 3 years, these lapel pins were sold to customers and given to staff. In fact, over 71,000 of the pins made their way out into the world. But in November 2007, an extremely worrying discovery was made. The seemingly harmless pins contained the toxic element lead. How much lead? Well, according to Nintendo, the pins contain amounts of lead that potentially could cause health problems if ingested or swallowed. They noted that while these pins weren't intended for children, the hazard of lead was still a significant risk. Now, lead is obviously an extreme health hazard, especially in products that children can pick up and put in their mouth. For a Mario-branded product to contain what the US Consumer Product Safety Commission described as high levels of lead is disastrous. And so the company embarked on a complete product recall. They stated, "In the event that you received one or more of the recalled pins, Nintendo is offering to replace them free of charge with a replacement lapel pin with a different character. Nintendo of America apologizes for any inconvenience this causes lapel pin owners." So, what was the aftermath within Nintendo? Well, as a result of the lead lapel incident, Nintendo of America brought in a new policy called green testing. If the company was releasing any kind of physical, non-game product, even as a small-scale promotional release, it would have to go through rigorous checks and double checks and triple checks to make sure there were no issues similar to those lead-laced lapels. In 2008, the US government brought in stringent regulation as to lead and other hazardous elements. And since then, Nintendo of America's website has featured a list of all of their physical product releases from the last 15 years, alongside the various tests they've been through. But it seems that by 2017, Nintendo were ready to try their hand at enamel pins once more, and so they released 2 sets of what they called collector pins. These sets of Mario-branded enamel pins were unsurprisingly produced via an entirely different firm called UCC Distribution, who got their start making card games in the 90s. 2 collections of 8 pins were released, 8 Mario pins and 8 Mario Kart pins. The Mario box is labelled Series 1, although, as far as I'm aware, there never was a Series 2. Still, most importantly of all, these enamel pins were lead-free. So, looking back, this whole lead lapel incident feels like a short blip from Nintendo's recent history. The company got extremely lucky that these lapels were never a widely sold product. 71,000 pins is nothing to sniff at, but it's a drop in the ocean compared to a lot of the company's other merchandise lines. The US Consumer Safety Product Commission stated in their investigation of the incident that no injuries had been reported as a result of the pins. If these lapel pins had been distributed more widely, or heaven forbid someone had been made ill due to their toxic contents, then this story might have made more of a splash in the news at the time. But luckily, it seems the danger was spotted before it was too late. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you to my patrons for helping make videos like this one possible. In particular, a special shout out goes to Alison Withenall, Brett and Eric, Candy Crystal, Cyprian Eoff, Daryl Jarrow, Ellie Birnbaum, Eliza the Doe, Evan Kinney, Hi There and Bye, Jim Gilsonen, Kieran Chan, Kelly Wright, Lucas Little, Michael Gunter, Skator Pie, Thomas Sutherland, and Tlazot Lalia.